the change of life, the transition from one place to the next. Because when you get to this place, which is really like 45 to 55, and younger for some and older for some, you start to meet all the puddles that you've created in your life from the things that you've been doing over and over and over again, and you start to really wonder whether you want to maintain these puddles or whether you want to somehow get rid of them or whatever. So I think that as just as Gandalf said to Frodo, it's not what happens to you, it's how you are with it. So you may have an experience of a day at the festival that's very challenging. It's not about what's happening, it's how you are with it. It's all about perception, all about the opportunity to learn whatever you need to learn about yourself in any given moment. So that's the opportunity. So let me just turn the page and speak to you with some words that I've written. And basically what I'm going to do is share with you information that I've gathered on this subject of Autumn Woman, Harvest Queen, information that I know and things that my journey is teaching me. So as I sit here, perched on the transformational altar of womanhood, somewhere in the midst of becoming the next version of me, I feel I can now speak to her as an initiate. My aim for today is that for those of you on the threshold of this rite of passage, that I can share some information that will be helpful. For those of you deep in it, this information can really help you navigate what's going on. And for those of you already cloaked in the wisdom cape, I honour and respect and celebrate you. So, who's finished bleeding? Who's in the process of finishing bleeding? Who's still bleeding? Well, good on you all for coming. Thank you for coming, and I hope that this can be informative for you. So, my intention is to share, as I said, things I've known, things I've gathered, and what my journey has taught me, and also to offer you a daily practice to help negotiate this territory, this change of life. But firstly, I just want to draw you a map so that you understand this season in its relevance to the whole of life. So I'm just going to use this whiteboard and I'm going to move it around. And for those of you who were at the session yesterday that I did with Nim Fox Harper on sacred ecology, I'm just going to do a really short version of this, and that is to explain where this season of our life fits in the whole of our life. So you've all heard of the maiden mother Crone. That's a story from a long, long time ago. A story that tells the time when we were mothers by the age we were 14, grandmothers by the time we were 30, and dead by the time we were 45. And if we reached menopause before we died, then it must be really close to death, because many women died before menopause came. So now we get to 100. So when we reach menopause at the age of 45 to 55, we're like halfway through. So we have now got another season in our lives. So rather than maiden mother Crone, it's maiden mother. The word I was taught is Maga, which is the equivalent of, the female equivalent of the masculine, which is Magus, which is magician. We all know that man. He's like 50 to 60 years old. He's CEO, he's boss man, man of power. This is the equivalent, the Maga, the feminine version, female version. There's other names that are used: Enchantress, Matriarch, Grandmother, Amazon. Anyone heard of any others? Warrioress, warrior. So it's as if the autumn of our lives. So menopause is said to have occurred when there has been 1 year without bleeding. Others say 2 years without bleeding. But the bottom line that my journey has taught me is that it takes however long it takes. Just like Menarche. We never know when the blood flow will begin. Just like birth, we never know when labour's going to begin or how long it's going to take. And just like the last period, you never know if it's going to be the last period or not until it was. And then you never know whether there'll be another one. Plenty of women have stopped bleeding for years and then started bleeding again. Plenty of women, when they do strong women's work, having stopped bleeding for years, bleed again. Sometimes that happens with the death of your parent or whatever. So deep spaces that you get to can bring on another bleed. So menopause is not a disease. So it does not need a diagnosis. So like every other rite of passage, it comes when it comes. And that's a little bit unpredictable for us in our culture, where we want to know what's going on and when it's going to start and when it's going to end. But menopause, part of its service to us is this. The experience of perimenopause, the physical, emotional and spiritual symptoms of this rite of passage are many and varied. I'll just list off some of those. Hot flushes, night sweats, which is hot flushes in the night, chills, which is when you hot flush goes away and you get freezing cold because you're covered in sweat. In America they call them hot flashes, which I think is so cool. The American women flash. Australian and English women flush. Insomnia, mood changes and fluctuations, vagina and bladder changes. And what that looks like is incontinence for some, stress incontinence and urgency incontinence, itchiness, hair growth, hair loss, so hair on the chinny chin chin, constipation, dizziness, dry eyes, burning mouth, headaches, migraines, memory loss. And then apparently you forget that you've forgotten, so it doesn't matter anymore. Osteoporosis, cramps, arthritis, palpitations, decreased libido, depression, rage, and even suicidal thoughts. Some women have lots of these symptoms, some have little or few, some have none. And the experience of perimenopause has been likened to a prolonged PMS. So, wow, you get the message. Exactly, there's more. And women who have experienced depression before may again at perimenopause. Bottom line being, wherever you go, there you are. And menopause, as Dr. Christian Northrup, who's written a wonderful book about this called The Wisdom of Menopause, as she says, menopause is designed to heal all the unhealed parts of you. That is the wisdom of menopause. It's designed to heal all the unhealed parts of you. She goes on to say that the symptoms of perimenopause are as if another labor. And this time, what's birthing is the next version of you. And it takes however long it takes. She calls it the mother of all wake-up calls. Because everything that was swept under the carpet in your life comes out so that you can deal with it, face it and heal it. and let go of it so that you can learn to become the next version of you. What needs to come up for you to be this next version of you will come up and show itself as symptoms physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So why are these symptoms happening and what's causing them? The symptoms of perimenopause are all about the effects of the changing levels of estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, follicle stimulating hormone, which is abbreviated as FSH, and luteinizing hormone, which is abbreviated as LH, and the state of your adrenal glands. At menopause, estrogen is basically half of premenopausal levels, and progesterone gets close to zero. And the adrenals that sit on your kidneys take over production of estrogen and can become depleted by this process. Depleted adrenals often overreact, giving rise to sudden sensations of anxiety, fear, and nervousness. As Ayurvedic Dr. Jimmy Wollumbin asks of women who are in their pre-perimenopausal phase, so those of you who are still bleeding, these are the questions to ask of yourself. Do you need caffeine to get you through the day? Have you used cortisol for long periods of time? Have you ever had chronic fatigue? Do you have trouble sleeping? Are you a bit of a worrywart? Did you do copious amounts of ecstasy or speed in your misspent youth? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then now is the time to invest in your health so you can sail through menopause. Contrary to popular belief, menopausal symptoms are not so much about the reproductive hormones, but about adrenal health. After a woman stops ovulating, her adrenal glands become the primary producers of estrogen. This is why exhausted, burned out women often have such a hard time. So if you are still bleeding, then now's the time to nurture your adrenal health. I'll get into that as well soon. So also at menopause, this is really exciting, our FSH, so follicle stimulating hormone, and LH, luteinizing hormone, they go to the levels that we experience at ovulation in our menstrual cycle and stay there. Their levels are 1,000 times greater than they are at any other point in our life cycle, and they have a new role. They serve as extra neurotransmitters in the right side of our brain. And the effects of this are increased creativity, intuition, and visionary experiences. We are miracles. Dr. Christian Northrup says the point of these new and constant levels of FSH and LH are to drive the changes taking place in the woman's life at this time. So the hormones that have dominated our lives from puberty to menopause during our reproductive years keep us in a mental, psychological, and physical space that is based on attracting a mate and caring for our children and others. We are much more likely in our mother season to compromise, to maintain the support that we have, and we often lose sight of our individual goals. Our primary focus in the mother season of our lives, due to the hormones, is to maintain balance and keep the peace for the sake of the family. And we are rewarded greatly for this. The hormones cause us to feel really good. And at menopause, as these hormone levels shift dramatically, the nurture role subsides and women choose where they focus their energy. It is as if a veil lifts. And often one thing that happens is that women recall and decide to confront past abuses. Due to the biochemical and hormone changes at menopause, Dr. Christian Northrup says a woman's buried traumas and unresolved issues come to the light. They show up as physical symptoms that cannot be ignored. The perimenopausal woman can be reflective, and she can see these experiences anew and begin, if she hasn't already, the deep healing she needs, as well as see the larger meaning of these incidences or processes or experiences in her life, for her life story. At perimenopause, the word is we are now strong enough deep within to allow the pain and the secrets of the past to rise to the surface and be cleared out for once and for all. What a gift. The new hormone levels, the FSH and the LH, that have the creativity, intuition, and visionary experiences, prime the brain for new perceptions and new behaviors. Often what surfaces is anger. And it is expressed in this time in a newfound way of clarity. Ways that women have often been unable to express before. The clarity that comes with the anger. Sometimes just irritability comes to the surface, or grouchy, or aggravated, or envious, or overwhelmed, or depressed. Maybe this shows up as high blood pressure, or headaches. But as Dr. Christian Northrup says, it's all anger. And it's a powerful signal from our inner wisdom. She says the rewiring that goes on in our brain at this phase makes our vision clearer and our motivations easier to identify. Using anger as a catalyst for positive change is always liberating. Unfortunately, these feelings have been seen as unwelcome visitors, and a lot of women are medicated to soothe themselves and make them feel better, when actually the opportunity is to ask, what is out of balance in my life that needs to change? Old habits surface for reevaluation. Do you really want to keep drinking as much alcohol as you are? Do you really want to keep smoking, drinking coffee, eating so much chocolate, so many carbohydrates? These habits, usually what we've adopted over the years to rev ourselves up or calm ourselves down, and our responses to the stresses of our lives, past and present, are up for evaluation. Do we really want to continue these? Because they have huge effects on our blood sugar levels. And our blood sugar levels greatly affect our energy levels and our moods. One of the most important things to address at this time of perimenopause and menopause is your nutrition. The diet, your diet, what food you're eating. We all need certain proportions of protein, fat, and carbohydrate for our bodies to function as they're designed. Unbalanced eating and excessive carbohydrates can lead to insulin resistance that leads to more fat production, particularly around the middle. Stress affects our whole system. We make more cortisol or adrenaline, which in turn affects our estrogen and progesterone and testosterone production. And this all affects how we feel and how our body works or doesn't. And this is a vicious cycle, and one we get the chance to be with at perimenopause, or else. It's basically all about balance, parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system balance, yin and yang. And we need to find what that is for ourselves, and it's probably a lot less doing and a lot more being. So